Hi, my name is Tracy Tadero, and welcome to the Be Courageous Summit. Um, I am a self-love mentor and life coach, and today I'm pleased to welcome our guest speaker for today, Eva Medilek. And Eva is a certified high-performance coach and relationship success coach. She's coached both men and women in the areas of personal development, leadership, and mastering habits for success. She specializes in helping driven executives, entrepreneurs, influencers, and investors achieve higher levels of business growth without sacrificing health, well-being, and relationships. Eva knows firsthand how a driven personality type can leave you feeling lonely, disappointed, frustrated, and resentful in your personal relationships, which impact your ability to achieve success professionally. She uses her personal experiences along with her leadership, transformational, and high performance training to teach you the pillars of high performance, as well as showing you how to communicate in a way that fosters influence and connections in your personal life and your career. Welcome, Eva.
Thanks, Tracy. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We're so glad that you're here, and I know the audience will get some amazing information from our interview today. So thank you, and welcome everybody to the summit today. And, I know that intimacy and power is a big topic that you cover, Eva. And so I would love for you to share to our viewers, or share with our viewers, how you can bring high performance into all of your relationships.
Well, I love to work with powerful, successful women. And I love to help them have happier, healthier, more intimate relationships, connection, and influence at home, at work, and in their communities without giving up their power. So when you bring in mastery of the habits of high performance, we work in the areas around clarity, energy, courage, productivity, and influence. And raising the level of proficiency in those habits create intimate, connected relationships in your life at home, in your life at work, but it's sustainable. What we really want is sustainability. I mean, everybody can do something for a minute, for a season, temporarily, but we want to sustain these extraordinary results that you get in every area of your life. And so learning what the high performance habits are, learning how to master them, becoming intimate with what your purpose is, becoming clear on what you want to do, and having enough self-awareness and self-reflection to be not only intimate with yourself, but to learn how to extend that in other areas, which doesn't necessarily mean losing your power. You do not have to sacrifice your health, your well-being, or your relationships. You actually can have connections at a deeper level, and connection is currency. So it does bring that next level of success in every area of your life.
Thank you. I think that people have this perception that power does separate them from, different areas of their life. And really it's about being able to incorporate that. And you mentioned, being sustainable, emotional sustainability. And with all the stuff that's going on right now, I think, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about how it's truly shaking people to determine how emotionally sustainable they are. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Well, what's happening right now is a level of awareness that is triggering a lot of people to look inside of them and see where racism is benefiting them and showing up in their lives, and how that actually, it's a system. Let's just put it to you this way. We're talking about not only COVID, but the latest explosion in the civil rights movement. And what's happening is it's causing people to look at literally where their habits, belief, and behaviors have come from. Because racism is systemic. It is a system. And you're going to hear people say, well, the system is broken. And I'm going to differ on that, because that is the system that needs to be broken. And what's coming up for a lot of people in their relationships are they're starting to argue with people because they have different beliefs. They're starting to argue with people based on what they're saying and what they're doing and how they're reacting and how they're responding. And people are in a heightened sense of reactivity. And I'm here to really help people, number one, create that awareness in yourselves. I mean, the drum of racism is actually denial. And the sooner that we can all admit that we are all racist and we are a product of systemic racism, the easier it will be for us to be the change that we want to see in the world. And when I say racist, I know everybody has the image of hate. They have that image of maybe swastika tattoos or skinhead or racial epithets or white hoods and cross burning. Those are racist. Don't waste your time arguing with those people. They're racist. They're proud of it. They know it. They wear it, and you don't have to be afraid of it. But what's forcing a lot of people who are the I'm not racist camp is forcing them to really look into themselves and getting feedback on how systemic racism has benefited anyone who is not Black. And that is causing people to get intimate with the feelings that are coming up inside them. And when you can create that intimate relationship with yourself and acknowledge and admit and start to see your blind spots, start to recognize what you don't know, start to educate yourself, to be more informed, to listen and learn, then you can be a better advocate for change and creating more intimate relationships, not only with your family, but at work and in your career and out in your communities. So that's why intimacy is powerful, for what it brings up, the awareness it creates, and it can spark you to action as well.
Yeah, and it is about taking action, right? It's one thing to acknowledge and to have an awareness, but then actually taking action is a whole nother step. And I know, with this whole thing coming up, it comes down to judgment, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, whatever it is. And we all have those judgments that we, live through life with, and it inhibits us, and it keeps us from living the best life that we can live, because we do have those judgments. And I know, somebody as myself who's not, racist anyway, it's like I still have judgments that I've had to face, and I had some stuff come up this morning, and really taking a look at those judgments of, like I said, the polarities, good, bad, right, wrong, whatever it is, and just sitting with that, whatever comes up, and taking a look at it. And so I appreciate everything that you're sharing, and really, just encouraging people to just step out of those systems, because it's programming, right? And we've been made to believe these lies and these illusions of something different from the truth, which is we are all one, we are all connected, and we are all love. And I know we shared the other day about having difficult conversations, and can you dive a little bit deeper into that? Even just share about having those difficult conversations during difficult times, which we are experiencing.
Yeah, difficult conversations will always come up no matter what, especially if you are partnered up or married. You will be having those difficult conversations for sure. But it's important to kind of set the stage. I like to say prepare the soil before planting the seed of your difficult conversation. And I always start every difficult conversation with acknowledgement and appreciation, because a lot of us are realizing that our friends and family and coworkers and colleagues may not share the same views that we have. They may have some defensiveness and denial coming up in them. And the biggest denial is, I'm not a racist. My family raised me different. I was raised to love everybody. Jesus loves everybody. God loves everybody. And it's really taking focus away from the root of the problem. Like, this is not about you. And when you get into these deeper, more intimate conversations about races and relationships, you're going to have that need to defend. You're going to have the need to respond. You're going to have the need to react. And I would just invite everyone, when you're having these conversations, be open to listening and learning without making other people wrong, without being right and righteous yourself, but just be open to seeing another perspective in the conversation. And so one way to prepare, number one, someone to hear you, or even yourself to hear someone else, is to start with acknowledgement and appreciation. First of all, thank you for having this conversation with me. I appreciate, the stand you're taking, or the fact that you're sharing your views, or, your heart is in the right place, so to speak. And, is it okay if I ask you some questions? Is it okay if I get curious? You always want to be curious before getting furious, because there's a lot of pain that's being unearthed right now. And everybody is processing it differently. And so you may or may not agree with what the other person is sharing or saying, and you don't have to. The point is that, don't make people feel wrong. They're less open to hearing what you have to say if you're making this about a right or wrong, and just be open to asking questions, being curious, listening. And don't listen with the intent of forming a response. When you listen, like, that's not true, that's not me, I had a Black friend, all of this is coming up, and you just want to defend yourself, and you're making it about you without taking the time to, like, let me just listen to hear what is important to this person, what they have to say, because I don't need to make it about me. If the relationship and the conversation has feedback that lands for you, then take a moment to be intimate with that at some point. Like, why did I have this reaction? What was coming up for me? What is being threatened in me that caused this trigger to come up, without responding? And let the other person know that you've heard them. I hear what you're saying. Thank you for sharing. You don't have to agree. That doesn't mean you agree, but we have to start with the bottom line: respect, to listen to each other as human beings. And so that's one of the ways, having what I call being generous in your listening when you're having these conversations. Also repeating what you heard, because of course there's a lot of misunderstanding going on, especially when someone hears the word racist. I'm not a racist. My parents, it's like, no, 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 no. Let's take that swastika Confederate flag waving racist picture out of your mind, and let's unpack some of the microaggressions or things that you've said that are internally racism, that was built in you from a system. It's not your fault. Nobody's blaming you. This is the system. It's like growing up in school. This is how we were taught math. And, since my kids were little, they probably changed it 5 times with how they teach math now. I know you have children too. Like, you ever go to help them with their math homework and you're like, what the heck? That's not what I learned. Like, why can't you just add 1 + 1? Why do you have to, like, put columns? It's like weird. Anyway, I digress. So, but it's important to really have conversations with respect for someone who doesn't necessarily share your opinions or your stance on something. And the only way to be a role model, or to be an influencer, to influence how someone else thinks, to challenge someone else to think differently, to challenge someone to change their views and maybe agree with you and take action in a different way, is to set up the conversation so that people feel heard. We get really defensive when we don't feel heard. And that's why we have the riots. If you listen to this Martin Luther King Jr. quote, is the rioting is the language of the unheard. If you've ever been in an argument with your husband and you felt he was patronizing or didn't hear you, how much more upset did that make you? And did you not want to wring his neck? Think about it in your intimate relationships. Well, we're experiencing it on a global level now. The language of the unheard is to get upset and to rile against and to yell and to scream. Hear me, listen to me. What do I have to do to get your attention? And so it starts with your small circle, and then it expands, and then it expands, and then it's a way of being for you, because you have to be a certain way before you can do anything, so that we can all have better.
Thank you for opening that up. I mean, you literally open it up from a different perspective, and I'm having to sit with my discomfort with it, if listening to you, and it truly is unpacking it. And bringing it to a deeper level of understanding. And I think it's so ironic. I really love to look at things from a spiritual level, you know, everything that's going on with the collective. And I just think it's so ironic. The last week, probably the message that's been coming to me is just listen, listen. And as I look around and I'm watching everybody walking around with masks over their mouth, and it just kind of reiterates, like, we just need to start listening. Like,
Beautiful. I love that. I never made that analogy because your ears are out and your mouth is covered. So there's a good analogy in that. It's time to listen without judgment, without judgment. And I know judgment's going to come up. It's not me. How do they think that about me? Or I don't agree, or they're being stupid, or they're not being open. Like, so many different judgments can come up, and it's really important that people be heard. And right now, Black voices want to be heard. And when you say things like, well, all lives matter, it's shutting us down, because we're not saying only Black lives matter. You know, that's not the implication, but right now the conversation is Black lives. You know, if I'm in a breast cancer march or a Susan G. Komen event for breast cancer, but everybody in your family is dealing with lung cancer, well, what about lung cancer? Lung cancer matters. We're not saying lung cancer doesn't matter. Right now, we're in a march for breast cancer. That's what the conversation is right now. And so, you know, before you react and respond defensively and righteous and right about sending love and light and doing any kind of spiritual bypass, listen to what we're saying, but listen with the intent to really hear so that you can learn, because your old judgments are not working anymore.
thank you. Yeah, that's activating something in me for sure, because I'm hearing you. I mean, I'm hearing you now, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm hearing the message that's being put out there. And I hope our viewers get to step out of that perception that they've had and really just say, you're right. It is just about this group of people that are wanting to be heard right now. So thank you for sharing it and stating it how you did. And I know I've got some discomfort stewing in, so I'll have to, you know, address that within myself after we're finished here. But also, one of the things that we need to identify is, you know, we can talk about wanting to change, or we can say like, oh yeah, I'm going to do something different. But, you know, where does that true transformation come from? And how can people step into making that transformation?
True transformation comes when you actually take action to be aware of where your beliefs and your behaviors and your patterns come from. Because if you're not in control of knowing where that came from, you're really in like an unconscious competence. And it goes back, you know. I think back is this way. Not back is this way. It goes back, you know, when you see yourself on screen.
Yeah.
No, it really is being aware. Like you said, like even in yourself, the uncomfortableness that comes up with being made aware of certain things, being aware of, you know what, maybe I'm not as right and righteous as I thought I was, and how I was being in my way of being. And maybe there's some deeper learning to unpack and really be made aware of. And what I really want to preface that with is, like, nobody is wrong. Nobody is at fault. The system is at fault. And so you just have to not be in denial that we all came up in a system, me and you, that perpetuated systemic racism. We are all racist. I mean, you and I can be both walking down the street and see a large Black man that looks scary, and our heart will skip a beat. We'll want to avoid, we'll want to step away. Where does that come from? That actually comes from, if you research history, that when the enslaved were free, and I'm going to talk about languaging here when I say enslaved, we were not slaves, but we were brought over here to be enslaved, first of all. And so when the slaves were freed, they put a loophole in the Constitution to make us criminals. And so it didn't only affect non-Black people, but we view ourselves that way too. Like my heart would skip a beat and walk across because he looked menacing. He looked like a criminal, a savage, an animal, which is language that's used when you research history. We're savages, animals, those people, Black on Black crime, all of that. And so about 4 years ago, I made a conscious effort that when I saw someone that I thought was capable of criminal activity or scaring me or harming me anyway, I would smile at them. And, you know, when I've done that, you can see the gentle teddy bear that comes out of people. You can see their defense. We've had to be on high alert because of the system in anything that we do. And you see that clearly with that Central Park case. You know, a African-American man, a Black man, just asking this white woman to leash up her dog, and immediately her white privilege is on full display. And so I made a conscious effort to try to get into the hearts of people and just smile and see what a smile does. And then you just immediately, everybody feels safe when you smile. Everyone feels safe. But systemic racism, the sooner that you can admit that you've benefited from white privilege, that you were raised in a system that perpetuates the scary Black person, the less than, the sooner you're like, okay, this is it. And like I tell my clients when I work with them in the relationship part, nothing's wrong with you, but something happened to you. Something was ingrained and implanted, a seed was planted in you that grew you into the person that you are today. So let's go back and try to uncover where those beliefs, behaviors, and patterns came from so that you can effectively start the transformation within. Because until you do the work yourself, you can't really be in committed action to make sustainable change in how the system is working.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. I'm having a coughing fit. Let me grab some water. Hold on just a second. Okay. Sorry. I'm back. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it's just stepping into that different way of thinking, I think, is basically where we're all needing to go, and having more understanding, right? And compassion and empathy, and moving things into a different direction. So with that being said, you know, are there some additional, you know, with the theme being be courageous, you know, some words of wisdom or some tips that you can share with our viewers around that theme?
Yeah, well, be courageous to learn about some of the origins of, you know, white privilege, white fragility, white supremacy. And I would encourage people to just start a book club and really discuss and have these open, intimate, vulnerable conversations so that you can see what comes up for you and deal with it. Like you said, stuff is going to come up. It's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be uneasy. But I would say the only way out is through. And so really walk through it. And if you need to start a little book club, like, let's see what they're talking about. What is this conversation about? Let's educate ourselves about facts, you know, not opinions, but facts about where this all came from. I think that's the first step. The second step is, you know, to be courageous to call it out. If you see somebody that is saying something, sorry, the little puppy here, you know, that is inappropriate, or you see some action that's inappropriate, it's almost like stepping up to prevent bullying, you know, anti-bullying stuff. If you see something, say something, and say it in a way that calls people not only out, but calls them forth into looking at things from a different perspective and realizing the effect that their words or their actions are having on somebody else and another group of people, and see if you can be a role model as an agent for change and for people to really start looking inside. And the only way to do that is with learning how to communicate effectively. Because I've had people that, you know, people are hurting. And so a lot of the reactions are, triggered reactions. And so
Mhm.
I have a formula that I live by. It's S plus R equals R. If you have a situation plus your reaction or response equals the result,
Mhm.
you're a conscious being of choice. You can choose to react, which is that knee-jerk defensive, not me, you're wrong, he's right, blah, blah, blah. Or you can react responsibly, which is respond. And you can create an open dialogue. Like, are you open to looking at this from a different perspective? Here's what I've learned
Mhm.
about this situation. Are you open to hear me? And I think that's just simple. When you see something, say something, but say it in a way that invites transformation in other people as well, as you're living it, as you're being more and doing more so that we all can have more.
Mm. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Very well said. And I think the reason that people say no is they just don't have enough information. And so being able to look at it from a different perspective, gaining a little bit more clarity on the situation or the facts, like you said, can really open up somebody's eyes and allow them to step back and see things from a different perspective. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Now, I know you have a free gift that you are offering to our viewers. If you want to share about that, Eva, please.
Yes, I do have a guidebook, ebook, PDF that you can download, and it's called 6 Powerful Ways of Being to Foster Effective Communication and Connection in Your Relationships. And, it's a guidebook that I use for my own marriage. This is, and all of my relationships. And it really just lays out 6 ways that you can be, that you can role model, how you can show up in relationships so that people feel that you are open and connected and how to have deeper conversations and create space for our differences.
Well, I think communication is so key, where they say like 98% of conflict is caused by miscommunication. I mean,
Exactly. And you see that if you think that's not happening, just, look on social media and turn on the news.
yeah, yeah.
It's really being lived out. But I like to say, it really is the process of communication that you want to win, not so much the results of the outcome, and that you have a better chance of creating win-win results and outcomes if you win the process first, if
Mm.
you how you communicate. So this guidebook is just a guide for you to start, showing up a little bit differently in your process of communication.
And who doesn't want win-win? I mean, really.
Exactly.
That is the way to go. And then also you have a paid offer that you are offering to the viewers of the summit.
Yeah, well, I did a forum the other day. I had this download of an idea of how can I do something? I've been guilty of being silent for so long and doing business as usual. And so I put together what I called the Allyship Awareness Forum. And it was a listen and learn event with 6 leading women of color, just to help our allies that have the heart and the intention of being an allies for equality for Black lives. And it's a 3-hour event actually that should go in your library list of resources on learning what microaggressions are, what racism and anti-racism is, what spiritual bypass is in this situation. And just, it was an opportunity for women to use their voices in this arena, but it was a safe space to have our allies who are not our non-Black allies to learn what they can actually do and how they can show up better at home, at work, and in their communities to be better allies so that the movement doesn't die in a month or two, that you can sustain this and take certain actions in your life. And so that is the paid offer. It is a 3-hour training on allyship and being aware.
Fabulous. Thank you. Now,
You're
I
welcome.
know, just real quick, you mentioned the term spiritual bypass a couple of times, and I know that that's something that I just learned about, in the last 7 or 8 years. Can you just do a quick explanation of what that means to our viewers? Because I know that can.
Actually, I just learned it too, to be honest with you. I mean, I've heard it being going around, but it's just like, when there's a mobilizing event like we've just had, Sending love and light to your friends who are hurting and are really grieving and affected by this is not enough. You know, offering prayers is good, sending love and light is great. I'll take it all day, every day. But then what? What's next? If you're just going to send me love, tell me you love me, offer me love and light, that is bypassing what the root of the problem is. You know, ask what you can do. How can I support you? What do you need me to do? How can I be a better ally besides sending my love and light? That's part of it. I'm not really proficient in the lingo in the spiritual community, but I know that that's part of it. That's part of what I was hearing, and what it brings up in me is like, yeah, and like, you should be sending love and light anyway, but right now we're all hurting really bad, and we can all use prayers, love and light, but I need more now. We need more now to keep this movement going and to be sustainable, so that we all are equal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's good to understand that and let everybody know that they are being heard right now, and we hear you even here on this platform. I know you and myself, it's like we hear you and we are here for you to reach out if there's some support that you need, and more information. We are available. There are resources out there where you can get the support that you need, and I think that's crucial for people to understand right now, because going through all this, especially being in isolation, people are feeling alone, and there's no need for that, because we are surrounded by people, and it's a matter of us reaching out too, but there are resources out there, and I just want to present that and let people know that you're available. I'm available. We're just an email away if there's something that needs to be discussed. And so anyways, thank you so much for your time, Eva. I so appreciate it. And I know the viewers have gotten a lot out of it, and very, very eye-opening for myself as well. And thank you. And,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, to speak to your audience, and to be a resource for just really bringing us all together in a way that we can be open, honest, and intimate with each other when we're having these conversations. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. And so as I sign off on this summit, I want to just continue to encourage each one of you to continue to be courageous. And like I said before, we are here for you. And I am signing off with love and light, but we are here to support you in whatever time now. So thank you all. Bye.
Bye.